Hello, this is Gio. Hey, look what we have here. We have my old 2-burner Coleman Camp Stove. And I figured I'd take this thing out, kind of clean it up, getting ready for a summer camp trip. But I figured I'd do a quick video on how to light one of these old Coleman stoves. So my model is the Coleman 425F model, and this is the, you put your Coleman fuel in a tank. It's not like one of the newer models which comes with, let's say, a fuel cartridge which you throw away once the fuel is used up. The older models, you would refill it with some Coleman fuel, which I have a tank right here. And hey, it's all preference, but I really do like these older models better. If you can get your hands on these are really fun to use and actually pretty effective. So before we light this, let's take a look at what we have. Of course, we have the little lid right here with some wind flaps. So you can kind of just stick this in the sides like this, and that helps when you're burning or when you're trying to cook. It kind of helps keep the wind off. If you have a big pan, you could always kind of fold one of these back, and so it can kind of go over. But they're really handy with the wind. And then your tank normally just stays inside in storage. It has this little notch here to take it out. And so your tank doesn't stay inside. You actually take your tank out and fill it up with fuel and re-hook it. There's a little hole right here and a couple of little kind of hooks here that it kind of hangs in, and you kind of stick it in like this. Put it into that hole right here, just loosely. It doesn't get tightened, and it just kind of sits there kind of loosely, and that's about all there is to attaching the tank. Now it looks like I do have a little funnel here. It does not come with the kit, but I just kind of store my funnel in my stove there, so when I refill the tank, it's nice and handy. And so looking in here, you got the little cooking grate right there, and zooming in. Okay, so of course you have your 2 burners. The one on the right is your main burner and is your primary burner. Your auxiliary burner is on the left. Now you can use your main burner with your auxiliary burner off, but you can't really use your auxiliary burner unless both of them are burning. Now let's go ahead and look at the fuel tank again. So we'll just take this off, and this is the fuel tank. And you put your Coleman fuel in right here. You just twist this out, and there's no pressure in the tank right now. I've already relieved the pressure, but you just kind of take your funnel. You just stick your funnel right like that and fill up your tank. I usually try not to fill it up totally full, maybe about 2/3 or 3/4 full, and keep it at that level. Now right here you have your pump, and this pump basically helps pressurize the tank. So when it's clockwise, it is kind of closed, and so to put air into the tank, you just sort of turn it this way, and that will allow the little pump to move. And you want to put your thumb on this little hole here, just like that. Hold it with 2 fingers, and when you do that, you can pump it, and as you pump it, you're putting pressure into the tank. And with the fuel up, maybe but 2/3, maybe you're probably doing about 35 pumps or so. It really depends on how much fuel is in there. If it's almost empty, you're going to do a lot more pumps before you really get it pumped up. And then when it's really kind of hard to pump in, then you could pretty much stop, and then you just kind of shut it like that. Take your thumb off really quick and turn it clockwise like that until it's kind of locked in the clockwise position, and then you're good to go there. Okay, so looking at this little black knob here, this is your fuel valve, and so when it's clockwise, it's closed, and to release the gas, you want to turn it counterclockwise. Now with the tank under pressure and cold, if I were to do that, I'd probably get some fuel spurting out here. Let's see, if I turn this little counterclockwise, you'll probably hear a little hiss, and you get a little bit of fuel coming out here. I don't want to spill too much, it's a little stinky, but so you just want to, after you pump up your tank, you just want to make sure that's closed until you're ready to actually operate the stove. And so you might say, hey Gio, I thought that once you pump it up, you're actually ejecting gas from this tube. But in fact, this tube here is called the generator. And when it is in place, like this, oops, let's just get it in place properly. So when it's in place, this pipe here, which is the generator, is actually over the main stove. And so when you start operating this, you're going to get a lot of yellow flame coming out. And that yellow flame is because you're getting a lot of just liquid going through your system. And as this generator pipe here starts heating up, instead of liquid fuel, it'll start vaporizing and you'll get the gas, and the yellow flame will die down and you'll get a nice blue flame because it's basically being charged with actual Coleman gas rather than the more liquid fuel. And this little component up here is just the mixing chamber. I can't really tell you what it does, but that it's the mixing chamber, and then the gas will go through here and into the burner right here. Now the other thing you want to be aware of is this little rod right here. This is the lighting lever, and right before you light it and right before you open up this valve, you want to lift this straight up. And what this does, it kind of makes the fuel a little bit leaner, so less fuel gets through and more air. And so that helps the lighting process because you won't get as much liquid fuel through here until the generator heats up and produces a gas. And when you get that blue flame, then you want to turn this down, and that will bring in less oxygen and more fuel gas into your system. Okay, so to operate your auxiliary burner, this is the auxiliary valve right here. And again, it's closed when it's in the clockwise position. And so when you get your main burner lit and heating well with a nice blue flame, then you can go ahead and take a lighter or a match and put it over this burner, turn this counterclockwise, and that will start bringing in some of the gas through this pipe to the auxiliary burner. And then you can light your auxiliary burner, and this will help control the level of the flame. So at that point, both burners are sharing the same gas. The main valve here, if you turn that down, you'll also get the auxiliary burner adjusting a little bit, but you could also adjust it here. And so that's about what I'll be doing. I'll be adding some fuel to this tank. Insert this into that little hole here. Again, it can be, it's just basically a loose fitting system, nothing to tighten as long as it's secure there. I'm going to be pumping this maybe about 30-40 times. Again, you want to counterclockwise, put your thumb on it and pump, a number of times, and then tighten it with your tighten it on the clockwise position. And then I want to lift up this little lighting rod there. Take my match or lighter. I can lift this up here and stick it here as I turn the valve here, and then I will get a yellow flame initially, and then I want to turn up this so I get a nice yellow flame, and after about, let's say, 30 seconds to a minute, the yellow flame will start dying down. Now the timing of that will depend on how cold it is. If the tank is extremely cold, let's say you're in sub-freezing temperature, it may take even several minutes before the fuel gets warm enough to start turning into a vapor, and so it could be several minutes. But at normal temperatures, after about 30 to 60 seconds, you'll get a nice blue flame. And at that point, you want to turn this little rod down, and then you'll have normal operations and can start cooking with your main burner. Now, if you do turn this rod down and the blue flame turns yellow again, then you probably need to wait a little bit longer for the generator to heat up. So go ahead and turn this up, and you'll get a yellow flame a little bit, and then just wait a few more seconds before this heats up a little bit more, and then turn it down and see if your blue flame remains. And again, for the auxiliary burner, you just want to take your match on this side with your main burner operational, and then you just twist this counterclockwise, opening up the valve to this pipe, and then light it, and you could adjust the temperature with this. Now with both burners operational, the main burner will always be hotter than the auxiliary burner. It's my understanding that the main burner is about 11,500 BTUs, where the auxiliary burner might be 9,500 BTUs, but it all depends on your age of your stove, etc. But let's go ahead and take this out. Again, I'm going to add some fuel here. Let's take this outside and light this up and see what it looks like. Again, we'll start by adding some fuel to the tank, but if you forget all these instructions, most Coleman stoves have the step-by-step instructions written right here on the lid. So this can be very helpful when you bring this out to camp. So I'm doing this with the tank cold, and the shape of the tank, you can normally just set it like that, and the filler hole is right there on top. I open it up, there's a little bit of pressure release, and you can hear it hiss. But that's fine as long as everything's cold. It's safe. Go ahead and put our funnel in there. And then add our fuel. Now if some fuel spills, it does evaporate pretty quickly, so and there we go. We just remove the funnel. Again, there's some fuel here. Just don't put a flame to it and you'll be okay. It'll evaporate pretty quick. Just tighten up the lid. Okay, we verify that this valve is shut clockwise. Then we go ahead and take the pump. We turn it counterclockwise, lift it up, put our thumb on the hole, and just pump maybe 30-40 times until the resistance starts building up. And so the resistance is a little bit, I could still do it, but it's not preventing me. But you kind of feel the resistance, and you can stop when the resistance is kind of higher, and then just lock it up by screwing this clockwise. And then we go ahead and reinsert our tank, just like that. Okay, so I'm just going to do this with matches instead of a lighter. So I'm just going to lift up this grate right here to get it out of the way. Just like that. And then I'm going to lift up this lighting rod like that. Light my match. Carefully put it over the burner, and then open up the fuel valve. And there you can see the yellow flame, and that yellow flame is heating the generator rod. And it didn't take that long for it to start turning blue, so it's not that cold out. So basically the fuel in this generator rod is starting to vaporize, and it's burning cleaner. Now if you feel you don't have enough pressure, you could always, while it's still lit, loosen this and give it some extra pumps, and you could start hearing the fuel come out quicker, more powerful. And then with a nice blue flame, we want to go ahead and turn the lighting rod. And there you go, you have a nice warm flame. So with the main flame going, we want to get our auxiliary burner going. So I'm just going to use a little match here, get this lit, and then I'm going to take this auxiliary valve here, turn it counterclockwise, and there you go, it's the auxiliary burner is lit. I have some garbage there. That's okay. So for the auxiliary burner, you don't really have to preheat it up since the generator's already heated up and you're already getting gas vapors to the auxiliary, so you don't get any yellow flame in the auxiliary burner. Okay, so now we could go ahead and put this down, put our windshields back up. And start cooking. Now if we want to just focus on one burner, keep the auxiliary burner off, we just turn this auxiliary valve clockwise and that will turn the auxiliary burner off. And then you can maneuver the flame intensity, change the flame of the main burner just with this valve. You could reduce the heat or increase it. If it looks like the flame is starting to die, you may always add some pressure to your tank. And it should be good for your entire meal. So when we're done cooking and we want to turn everything off, we just turn the main valve clockwise until this flame dies. So you do want things to cool down a bit before you remove the tank. So you don't want anything hot. Once everything cools down, nice to the touch, you could remove your tank, open up your fuel cap to degas, depressurize your tank, and then you can replace your tank back in your burner, shut everything down, and pack away. And there you have it. That is how you light a 2-burner Coleman Camp Stove. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please hit that like button at the bottom of the screen, and even consider subscribing to my channel. I'll have many more videos to come. Bye-bye.